If you have to go through all that problem to correct it, forget it.
You start? Okay. Why don't we start with your telling us your name and your date of birth and where you were born.
My name is, my American name is Jerry Shain. Before the war, I was known as Yankel Cheshinsky. The date of my birth, I didn't know exactly. I didn't even remember even my spelling of my last name. So I figure I was born in 1928.
And
approximately. I was born in near Warsaw, Poland. The city is named Siedlce. I lived at Otwock, 25 kilometers near Warsaw, a resort area, beautiful, nice resort area.
All right, now can you tell us what life was like before the war started for you?
For myself as a child, I didn't know any better. I thought it's supposed to be like this, such for example, I was the oldest of 3 children. My parents had 3 boys. And when my youngest brother, Abraham, was born at the outbreak of the war, just before the war, I remember, my father carrying a big canister of soda water for the circumcision for the breast. He was beaten up by a bunch of Polish men and left for dead just because he was Jewish. And I do remember also going to Cheder, because that's the only schooling I was permitted to go to, although my boyfriend, who survived the war also, he went to public school number 4, but only very few Jews were permitted to go to public school. I remember going home from Cheder, early morning, seeing 2 nuns, Catholic nuns, and I said good morning to them like a nice young gentleman at the age of about 6, 7, 8, and I said good morning, and they didn't answer. They ignored me. Now I realize why, because afterwards, as the years kept going on, when you meet a Catholic in Poland or come to his house, you're supposed to say, bless Jesus Christ, and this gave away me being Jewish. I was ignored. I was very hurt. Many times, many Polish hooligans used to come into my area where I live, because the Jewish community lived in their own community. We formed our own ghetto, actually. We lived in a very poor Jewish community, my parents and my brother and I. And drunken hooligan would come beat up anybody inside, nobody dared to resist them, because if they would resist them, the mob would come in and wipe out half of this community, so we left him alone. But just at the outbreak of the war, we had some organizations who did resist him.
Do you have any pleasant memories of your family before?
Yes,
before
I do. Like I didn't know no better. That was part of, like I said, that was part of my life. We played soccer, we played baseball with our fellow Jewish children. Matter of fact, I had a boyfriend, Gentile boyfriend, the landlord's son, named Oleg, and he was my best boyfriend. And he thought he was Jewish, and I thought he was Jewish too, because he learned how to speak Yiddish, and I learned how to stutter because he was stuttering. So we didn't know no difference. As a child, I didn't know no difference.
Now you have a picture of, what is this picture that you
This
have?
picture is of my mother, my father, and my 2 brothers and my 2 boyfriends. The one boyfriend, Menachem Burstein, he and myself are the only 2 children who have survived out of the 25,000 Jewish people in my ghetto. We have 2 children, and less than 100 of us have survived, mostly in the Soviet Union.
You want to tell us? Let's see. You were about 10. When
about 10 years old when the war broke out, approximately.
What do you remember of how it started?
I remember when it started, before even the Germans came in, and 3 airplanes came overhead, and they were bombing. Looked like the Jewish community. Was pointed out to me by my mother. And I said to my mother, why doesn't anybody do something to help us? And after the war was over, and even till today, I said, why wasn't there anybody to help us? My mother was angry with me. I said, why? I said I had a big mouth, because I expressed my attitude. And then when people were waiting in line to the bakery, very clearly I remember, and the Polish people dragged the Jews out of the line. Although I was a little kid, I always wound up in the front line, kept coming back and more, get more bread, more sugar, more salt, essentials to survive in the grocery lines or the bakery lines. Even going getting water, the same thing. They dragged Jews out of the lines and kicked them away and chased them away, beat them up. The Germans didn't even come in yet. Then the war, Germans came in, and everybody had to wear a white armband with a Star of David. And the storefronts, the Jewish storefronts, the frame of the windows and the doors were painted yellow to indicate it's a Jewish business, and that was very conveniently wrapped. I remember a Jewish man, bearded Jewish man, walking alongside the railroad station. A bunch of German soldiers were fighting, beating him up, accusing him, why didn't he say hello to them, or bow, take his head off for them, or get off the sidewalk. And then they took to punish him for it, they took a pocket knife out of there, and they started cutting his beard where the man was crying in embarrassment or in pain.
And so how did things begin to change for you?
For me personally, I didn't go to school no more cheder. Food was very short because we were put into a ghetto. We lived in a ghetto anyways, and this way they more or less put us in a smaller area of Otforsk of 25,000 Jews, where there maybe would be room maybe for 5,000, 6,000 Jews, people to live there. And you couldn't go in or go out. Anybody going out would be shot on sight, or coming back would be shot on sight. It was guarded by Polish, German, and Jewish police. And I, out of desperation, I was a bad kid, evidently. I was a rough kid, even regardless of my age. And my mother sent me off to nearby villages to get food.
What does that mean, you were a bad kid?
Many nights I didn't come home because I used to bring all the stray dogs home, especially during the bombs when they were falling. And my mother used to beat me up and chase out me with the dogs. I didn't bother coming home no more. And when she found me, she beat me up and dragged me home. So that's in this respect, I mean, I was a bad kid. And this helped me to roughen up to survive, because when I didn't come home with the dogs, naturally, I learned how to survive without going to school by taking things off the horse-drawn wagons from the market, beets and carrots, and to survive, to keep me for food.
So you were about 10 years old, and you wouldn't go home sometimes?
Sometimes, yes. Play hooky from school.
And you'd stay out all night long?
Yes.
For days?
Well, yeah, one night or so. In the summertime only.
And how would you manage when you were only 10 years old?
Yeah, but...
were you scared?
Yes and no. I was... This story actually is not, I don't think it's any... but I have a funny story, if it would fit into it, because time-wise. I told my mother how rough I was, because my mother asked me the same question. She threatened me that a gypsy will take me away, because if you're a bad kid the way you are, a gypsy will take you. So I said to her, I'm a tough guy. So she told me, if a gypsy tears a thread out of your clothing, you're weak then. And I was going home from Cheder late at night with a homemade lantern with a candle, and our landlord, General landlord, had geese, and the geese were hissing at me. They're like watchdogs, and I was hissing back to them. And as I turned around, somebody who I was bragging to must have put a flashlight in their mouth, and they were hissing like at me, and I started screaming, thinking these are gypsies, they're going to get me. And I was screaming, asking for help from my mother, and everybody around, all the neighbors came running out to get me, to save me. So, but I...
So this is how you were a bad guy. Did you do anything else that you were a rough kid?
No, nothing, no. I didn't steal.
You just took the dogs home and your mother would get angry?
I love dogs. Till today, recently, I still love dogs. You could talk to them, they don't talk back to you.
They're good friends.
You better believe it.
So then what happened?
Then when the war, the Germans came in, and the Jewish people started dying of hunger on the street. When I say dying, their bodies were laying on the street. And my mother sent me out to being a bad kid. There was the opportune time, kept sending me out to go to nearby villages. We had no money to trade. My mother pawned off her marriage band, golden marriage band, or whatever value. We ran out to heat the house. The people in the ghetto cut down all the beautiful trees we had, not was the pine needle trees. When the pine needle trees were cut down, they they dug up the trunks and the roots, and I was doing the same thing to heating and cooking the wood. The fences, then it came to our house. My mother, we had wooden boards, and the mattress consisted of straw. We used up the wooden boards for our bed, we slept on the floor. Then we used up the straw, the mattress, and we slept on the floor just the same, just to keep ourselves alive another day. And they gave us ration, little rations, bowl of soup to sustain ourselves. But Jews still died of hunger. And then I used to sneak out of the ghetto into the Gentile side, ask for handouts to from various peasants, various villages. And I used to lend, this time of the year in the spring, I used to lend jobs to 2 tent cows. And the peasant would have 1 cow on a rope. I would graze the cow and bring it home for milking and go back again. And I stayed there for a short while because I was required to bring a birth certificate which I couldn't produce to prove that I'm not Jewish. And then I used to disappear, come back in the ghetto and go out of the ghetto.
How would you come and go out of the ghetto?
Sneak in and sneak out.
How? How would you sneak in?
Well, they had barbed wire, so you found a way by digging a hole underneath the barbed wire and just crawl into the same route I used to take.
Was it difficult to do that?
For me, it was not. And then after going around begging to various peasants' villages on foot, I used to go nearby villages, ask for handouts. And I used to keep walking straight ahead of me, not knowing where I'm going. Just kept walking until I find out many times I found up in a Jewish little shtetl, a little Jewish town. And they let me sleep over because I used to be very wet, many times cold, freezing. The roads were not, there were lime roads and they were not paved. And my feet usually would sleep over in a synagogue. The synagogue was a shelter for many people just like myself because I thought I was invented something unique to survive, to go around begging. And there were many other people. Because there were many other Jewish beggars, and amongst them were Gentile beggars. When I used to walk in a person's house, in the beginning, I was not an experienced beggar. They used to beat me up, the Gentile people, because they would recognize me, I'm Jewish. I couldn't figure out how. But then I realized that by following some Gentile professional beggars, that when you walk in a Gentile's house, you say, God bless Jesus Christ. And the host says forever and ever, amen. Then they told me to cross myself. So I learned how to cross myself, but the wrong shoulders I used to put on. Then told me to say your prayer. So I stole a catechism, and their prayers on the front page, and I memorized the prayer. And before I learned how to say the prayer, when I wound up sleeping over many a peasant's house on the floor as a beggar would, I kneeled down in front of any kind of holy statue, idol, and I crossed myself, mumbled with my lips, moved around, and then I crossed myself again, and I got up and went to sleep on the bedded down floor on a straw in the peasant people's houses. Then, as I kept doing it over and over again, I kept coming back into the ghetto. One time I came back, my brother was missing, my middle brother, who tried to imitate me. My mother told me which way he went to, and I knew there was a Jewish community in that direction. I went to get him, and I finally asking everybody in the Jewish community where could I find this little boy who must have been about 7 years old. I finally found him sleeping on an attic and with those Jewish people infested full of lice within the fur there. And I made him walk home. His feet were frostbitten. I tried to beat him to make him walk. Got a long walk, it was winter already. And a horse-drawn wagon, a peasant, I asked him to give us a lift. He gave us a lift, and on the back tail of the wagon, as I'm riding on the wagon, I see 2 German gendarmes passing by on bicycles, and they didn't pay attention to us. Right afterwards, 2 Jewish young men, who black marketeers, going out to survive, just the same, had a little package on their bicycles, called out to the peasant to show that they are Gentile. Well, I didn't recognize them from my hometown. How come you helping 2 Jews? The 2 little boys, age 8, 7, whatever, 10. And so the peasant kicked us off the wagon. We came to a corner house, an unfinished building there, and I couldn't, my brother says, kill me, I'm not going to walk no far, I cannot. Although I was beating him, make him walk, he wouldn't walk no further. I left him to get my mother. As I went to get my mother, we came back the following morning because it was after 12 o'clock, was curfew. We couldn't find my brother. And my mother looked inside the window to the unfinished building. She found him laying there. We brought him back into the ghetto. He died of gangrene on his feet in the ghetto. This when I came back one time. Every time I came back, somebody died in my family. The same thing, next time I came back, my father died sleeping with me in the same bed. My brother slept with me because we all slept in the same bed to keep us warm. The last time I was tending cows for a peasant, I had a dream while I was sleeping that my mother was riding on a horse-drawn wagon with a bunch of bundles on the wagon. And two German soldiers were on the wagon with my mother. And I wanted to board the wagon. My mother says, "Get out of here. You don't belong with me over here." And I was so mad at her. I woke up screaming and crying. Till following morning, I discovered a lady from a nearby town, a Jewish community also. She came do business over there. And the Jewish lady was telling what happened in Otforsk. After finding a little booklet written about my hometown, I found out the date. It was June of 1942, when the ghetto was liquidated. I went promptly back to my ghetto. I found no one except Polish people with sacks underneath their arms, digging in the rubble, tearing the old, because mostly were frame houses, and tearing the house apart for cooking, for heating for themselves, and looking for valuables, also looking for Jews and the debris. I seen German, Polish, and Jewish police doing the same thing, digging the rubble for hidden Jews. I walked over to one of the Jewish policemen. There were two of them. And I said, "My name is Yankel Cheshinsky. I'm a Jew. I lived right here in this town. Could you tell me what happened to everybody?" He started screaming at me with anger, "What are you doing over here?" He grabbed me by my wrist, and I knew the consequences. I bit him on his wrist. And I started running. His only weapon was a nightstick and a whistle. An armband indicating he's a Jewish policeman. Excuse me. And he was using the whistle and followed, running after me. I escaped him. I wound up behind a gate on the market. And I was standing behind the gate of it. The two Polish boys, teenagers, came in to urinate there, and they see me hiding there. Accused me of being a Jew. I fought him off with my little bayonet knife, which I used when I was tending the cows. I went to the railroad station in Otforsk. I sat myself down on a bench. I fell asleep, and I woke up at 12 o'clock when the regular train from nearby villages from the direction of Treblinka, Majdanek, heading for Warsaw. Otforsk was between Treblinka and Majdanek, which is my hometown, heading towards Warsaw. These black marketeers, many of them, took the big waiting room up, and they were sitting on their bundles. It gave me an idea that I could sleep here at night, mingle between the people every night. There was a bookcase in the nighttime. In the daytime was a newspaper stand, and behind the bookcase, tall bookcase, there was a radiator on tall legs. I crawled underneath the radiator on a marble floor, and I invented a way of going and coming. I used to take the 12 o'clock train from nearby.
Before we get to that part of your story, what happened to your mother?
I don't know. I don't know what happened to my younger brother.
When was the last time that you saw her?
1942, according to the booklet which I read.
When the ghetto was liquidated, that was the last
before
time
the
that you
ghetto
saw
was
her?
liquidated.
Just before.
And I came after while the ghetto was being liquidated. There were no Jews no more there. There were still looking
How
for
did you
Jews.
get separated from her?
I left my regular routine, leaving, coming, and going, begging, coming back every week, every day, every 2 days, every month. I never had no time comprehension, which I still don't have. Time don't mean nothing to me today. Right now, the same thing. Dates don't mean nothing to me. And my mother, before that, introduced me to travel by trains, by the way.
How?
I'm tracking back now. Was my father died, my brother died. My mother seen everybody's dying out on the streets. Horse-drawn wagon when my brother died. My father died every time. My mother went outside as a horse-drawn wagon would pass by, full of bodies. And they used to pick them off the street laying and take them out to bury them in a common grave. My mother sent me to Siedlce. From Siedlce first to Warsaw, from Warsaw to go to Siedlce, from Siedlce to Sokolov, and there's a village nearby. All the names were Jewish pronunciations. Her family supposed to live on a farm, and for me to get foodstuffs. We had no communication, not knowing what happened to them neither. On our way, I didn't speak good Polish. I had a Polish Jewish accent. I had no identification papers to prove that I'm Gentile. I didn't have that. I had no money.
How did you travel?
By train.
By train. Your mother sent you.
First time I ever went on a
It's
train.
the first time. Your mother sent you from
Otwock to go to those cities I just mentioned to you, to go to her hometown village. And I got halfway there. I got to Warsaw. From Warsaw, transferred on a train. I asked people how to go there. Without any money, without identification, bypassing the conductors and the police and Germans and gendarmes and Polish collaborators looking for Jews on a railroad station, and shabbily dressed. And I managed to get to Siedlce, the city which I was born. As everybody likes to look up their roots, I want to look up my roots where I was born. I don't remember when I was a child living there, but I want to see my roots. I made a mistake. It cost me almost my life. I went off to wander off on the streets of Siedlce. As I'm walking down, I see gendarmes were stopping people, asking for identification papers. That was my signal to go back to the railroad station, continue my journey. And I tried to get back onto the platform. The station master, a Volksdeutsche, which means a Pole of German descent, stopped me and said, "May I have your ticket, please?" I started crying to him, and I said to him, "My mother's on that train waiting right over here," and I got separated from her. And she's looking out the window. "Before the train leaves, please let me go to my mother." And he recognized my Jewish accent. He tried to arrest me, accused me of being a Jew. And I kept crying really loud, knowing the consequences, because he was reaching for his pistol here on the side of him, which would be the automatic instant shoot you to death regardless of your age. There was the sudden execution, instant execution of a Jew. That was the procedure. And I started crying and screaming. I alerted many people who passerbys, and they all surrounded me, Gentile people, of course. And especially two women were very vocal if they believed my story. And this man arrested those two women. As he holding off those two Polish women, that station master, the other men and women escorted me to the train going back to Warsaw and to Otwock, my hometown. They told this to the conductor, my dilemma. The conductor took charge of me, told everybody on the train my story. And I kept on crying really loud because everybody was giving me all kind of goodies, those black marketeers. And the more goodies I was getting, the louder I was crying. And when I kept changing trains, I did the same thing because this conductor handed me over to another conductor. By the time I got home, I had lots of goodies, and I told this to my mother. My mother says, "Well, you did such a good job. Go back and do it again." I did this for 6 years, not similar thing, but I lived on the trains for 6 years. That was my first introduction to traveling by trains. I would like to show you a picture of the trains where I was singing songs on the train. And while I was singing songs on the train, to accumulate enough money to buy myself 1 kilogram of candy charms. And so there were many professional entertainers. Because that's what the money was on the trains from the black marketeers. And many professional photographers, which one of the photographers took this picture of me after I was selling candies already. And then I went into business myself, selling candy and singing songs. And before that, I used to steal also coal off the train, throwing it down for big men. And I also used to steal potatoes of the horse-drawn wagons because the Polish black farmers, peasants, used to pay in taxes in lieu of potatoes. And they wouldn't leave this sack with the Germans because the sack, you made a suit of clothes out of a sack. So they used to dump the potatoes on a horse-drawn wagon. The wheels, the wooden wheels with the metal rims and a cobblestone road would go up, bum, 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 and all the potatoes would fall on the ground. I used to follow the potato wagon and pick up the potatoes and put my second take back into the ghetto. And the German soldier would usually use a whip on me. And I got sick and tired of being hit on a whip. I got a long stick and a nail on the end, and I kept scooping up the potato, and the Germans would think I was cute, as a Gentile boy, of course. And the same way I used to steal coal off the wagon too, being delivered to the station.
All right, now I know that time kind of gets all blurred together, and it's hard to make sense of time and when something happened. But I'd like to see if we can try and tell the sequence of things that happened. So your mother sent you out on the train the first time to go to the town, and you came back and you were very successful. You had all these goodies. And so she said, right now, this is what I want you to do. How was it that you lost her?
When, as I told you, when I was leaving on trains, and I was traveling with the trains afterwards, I didn't know which direction I was going to. I always go to Warsaw first. I was heading to Warsaw. Warsaw centrally located, and pick any train going in any direction without didn't care where I was going. And I used to see
just get on a train.
Just get on another passenger, any train. And I used to see a village to my liking. I learned how to slow the train down. First, I used to stop the train by pulling the brakes, and everybody used to fall on top of each other, and people chase after me. Because the train used to come to a sudden stop, I let the steam out. Between the two cars, you get together, and there's a little handle between the two cars. They were coupled together, not like they have the subway over here. You can walk from car to car. They're connected, coupled to each other, and you have to go out the outside to get from one car to the other one. I used to do that too, run on the roof from car to car. And I used to slow the trains down and go ask for handouts. And when I went for handouts, people used to give me jobs this time. And that's how I wound up getting the job. When I had the dream, I went back to the ghetto to look for my mother and my brother, and then I found no one, no more. I would like to tell you, because I don't know how much time we got, but the little incidents, what I have seen, what happened to me. One time, I'm going to talk first about myself, then I'll talk about what I see that happened to others. In Warsaw, on the main railroad station, or many railroad stations, there had many Polish collaborators, men, women, and children, who used to follow that fast-moving cattle cars, which was passing my hometown, heading to Treblinka, Majdanek. Those cattle cars, trains were loaded full of Jews, and that's all you see, little eyes looking out of those little windows, barbed wire on each cattle car. On top, they were mounted machine guns by Ukrainians, Lithuanians, Estonians, shooting down anybody who jumped off. Jews still managed to jump off those fast-moving trains. As my passenger train used to follow that train who just passed by with loaded full of Jews heading to Treblinka, Majdanek, which is in the same direction, bypassing my hometown of Otwock. And they see the Jewish people laying, sitting, walking, limping alongside the railroad tracks. And Polish people follow the railroad tracks in packs, grab these Jews, round them up, take their clothing away, usually would be accompanied by one German with a machine gun, make them dig their own grave, and bury them as after my train used to pass by. It's in just yellow, flat dirt. I knew this was a mass grave of Jews. And because of the circumstance of being the wrong place, the wrong time, I didn't know any better, I used to get picked up several times, and I was picked up. Because of my age and my will to live, I wouldn't say smart, just will to live, I always managed to con my way out or escape.
Can you tell us sometimes if you got picked up?
It was Christmas Eve. People were very generous to me, and I collected a lots of goodies, cakes, because they bake a lot, and they're very generous, Roman Catholics. And I collected lots of cake. I said, why should I wait for the 12 o'clock train? Let me take the earlier train. A big mistake. I arrived in Otwock on my favorite railroad station, sitting in front of the bookcase to close. I was sitting on a bench, and I feel like closing my eyes, and sitting, all of a sudden, Mr. Schlicht, Herr Schlicht, he was a Polish man from my hometown of German descent, Volksdeutsche, walking with a German Shepherd dog, wearing the Gestapo uniform. He was the head of the Gestapo, head of everything in my hometown. He helped liquidate the Otwock ghetto. And he went with his little customary little finger, kum Jude, Jude, which meant come Jew. And I denied it of being Jewish. And he started talking to me in German. I knew him from sight, of course. And I pretend I don't understand German. As I made a run for it, the German Shepherd dog knocked me to the ground, to the floor, under the railroad station outwards, tore all my clothing off my shoulder, didn't penetrate my skin, because everywhere I've been, every peasant's house I've been, they used to have coats, jackets, and scarecrows, or hang in the doorways. I used to borrow that and put it on top of each other to keep me warm. And he had me locked up in the little cell on the railroad station, called two Polish policemen armed with the rifles. And they came at 12 o'clock at night, escorted me to the police station. And as I came to the police station, I told the same story to Mr. Schlicht, who was sitting waiting for me already at a desk with the chief of the Polish police. And they asked me, they booked me. And I gave them my name. They asked me my name. I said, Jan Parzewski, because I had many aliases. Names popped out of nowhere. Jan Pazeski came easy to me because the Polish station master in that town happened to be Jan Pazeski. They asked me if I'm related to him. I said, I think so. Well, it was so wonderful to be related to somebody who wasn't Jewish. They asked me my address. I gave my real address from before the war, Oksheya 18. Schlicht, knowing very well the area, very poor area, the very poor Poles lived there also, and he accused me of being a bandit. It was a sigh of relief being a bandit instead of being a Jew, because they didn't kill bandits, they killed Jews. And he started interrogating where the other Jews were. Where my parents? It couldn't be possible you'd be still alive this time of the year. I don't know what year it was, which year. Was winter, December, Christmas. And it promised me all kind of good things. And they finally put me in a little cell, maybe a cell the size of 10 by 10. When the men slept on a platform, wooden platform. There were about a dozen Polish men and a gypsy. I told the gypsy, and I told Mr. Herr Schlicht and the chief of police, said I was waiting for my mother to arrive with a 12 o'clock train, and she's supposed to come from the place where I work for these peasants. I have a stepmother. My father is a prisoner of war in Germany. If my stepmother doesn't find me on the station, she'll really kill me. They kept me there, I don't know for how long. And there was a man who spoke Yiddish from my hometown who recognized me, a man who was in his 20s. And he told everybody I'm Jewish, that he knew me. And I kept denying it. They brought in about a half a dozen Jewish men, butchers, from my hometown, were handcuffed to each other. They were discovered, or somebody gave the hiding place away to each other. One was an elderly man, maybe in his late 30s, but the others were in their 20s. To me, they're an elderly man. And he was not handcuffed to no one. As they were sleeping, I told him that I'm pretending to be Gentile. He says, we know you. We're not going to give you away because the other guy already told you about you. The gypsy believed my story. The old gypsy who was also in the cell. He kept cursing my stepmother for not coming to get me out. He left us, I don't know how long I was there, crying and screaming. Everybody kept hitting me. And the Polish men in that little prison cell kept talking to each other, whispering to each other at night, saying if that little bitty window with a little barbed wire, there was a prefabricated like a little cell. If they tried to break out, we're going to stop them. This Polish man who spoke Yiddish. And finally they announced all Jews out. If you've seen the movie Europa, Europa, there are two incidents which similar to mine. Since they're going to call us all out, and I know I keep denying I'm being Jewish, and here I'm circumcised. So I pulled a thread out of my clothes and tied my penis skin off my forehead figure, and I urinated in it, so it blew up. I was in pain, although I didn't feel the pain, because I was afraid to die. Finally, all the Jews were called out into the office there from the little cell, and I stayed behind. After all, I'm not Jewish, I told them. This Polish man spoke Yiddish, pushed me out, and the policeman escorted me to Herr Schlicht and the chief of police. They told this Jewish man, who was not handcuffed to the others, to talk to me in Yiddish, which he did. I did the proper thing as a good Polish Catholic boy would do. I started kicking and beating up the Jew, hollering, you goddamn dirty, filthy Jew, don't you call me Jew, don't speak to me in your language, I'm not one of you. The Schlicht and the chief of police gave me all my belongings back and told me to leave. The Polish policeman, they escorted me to the door, kicked me in my rear end, said, get out of here, you Jew. I no longer you're Jewish. As I'm walking down alongside the railroad tracks heading towards the railroad station, which I returned a year ago to different places, including the place and showing my American wife where I survived and where I was. I seen a man following me. This was in the daytime. He didn't look to me Polish, the way he was dressed. I started running, he started running. I hopped over that barbed wire fence separating the street from the railroad tracks. I heard a freight train coming. I was very good hopping trains because I was experienced. So I came between stations, I slowed the train down, I jumped off and went about my regular routine. Another incident happened. I'm going to go talk about myself. I talk about others now. Because time permits, I talk about myself. I have many stories about myself being captured. I was in Garwolin, which is the same railroad line heading to Treblinka, Majdanek, between Otwock and Warsaw and Treblinka, Majdanek. And there were a bunch of Jewish men working for the German Wehrmacht, means the regular military. They were unloading hay. And they gave me some soup which the soldiers were eating, the Jewish men, but I didn't tell them who I was. And one of the German soldiers went to relieve himself in a haystack. He came back with about maybe a half a dozen or so young teenage boys with a mother with them screaming, "I'm not Jewish, I'm German." When they asked, the German soldiers surrounded this mother with her teenage boys, and the same as those Polish people. They asked her why we were hiding the haystack. She told them the story. She jumped off from a train heading towards the direction of the Treblinka Majdanek from Warsaw Ghetto. And they asked her, "Why were you hiding?" She says, "I'm not Jewish, I'm German. My husband was Jewish, and they put us in the Warsaw Ghetto." They offered to save her life, but I must kill the boys. And as a mother would, she said, "If you kill them, kill me too." And they done away with them. Another incident on the same railroad station. There was a little bitty railroad station, Garvolen, where many black marketeers used to eat soup, and like in every railroad station, there was a little kitchen, they ate them standing up. And the lady of the kitchen of the little buffet restaurant, she gave whatever was left over, she used to give me a pot of cabbage soup, whatever she had left over. And this lady gave me a big pot of soup. And as I'm eating the soup and looking out the window onto the railroad tracks from that little railroad station, I see a bunch of Polish people, men, women, children as usual, with a German Volksdeutsche and a gun in his hand, escorting a very attractive young woman who spoke a foreign language unknown to me. And she was already in her stockings only. Someone already took her shoes. They took her behind a barn, and I heard a shot ring out, and everybody's laughing. The Volksdeutsche come into the, I'm still eating the soup, comes into the little station, and he right away naturally accused me of being a Jew in German. I denied it. The Polish woman who owned the restaurant, I don't know if she was afraid for her life or she wanted to save my life. And she said, "He's a regular beggar. I know his family. I know everybody of his family. He comes here routine. He lives nearby over here. Leave him alone." She whispered in his ear, and they walked arm in arm with each other across the road to her apartment. I never went beyond, on the way to, again, to Treblinka Majdanek, beyond the big city named Demblin. I used to stop in a little railroad station before Demblin, where all the black marketeers used to also board a train over there. And during the daytime, a boyfriend of mine from my hometown, there were two other boys who did the similar things what I did. We didn't do it together, we did it separately. We used to meet at the little railroad station, baking potatoes in a fireplace before the 12 o'clock train would arrive. And both of us used to go to Otwotsk. I slept behind the bookcase, and he slept wherever he could on the railroad station in Otwotsk. And as we were baking potatoes, we got into a fight because he was selling baked potatoes to my customers. A fist fight. And I wound up sleeping on the platform outdoor toilet, on top on the attic, to be woken up by German gendarmes who were looking for counterfeit of the black marketeers. And the Polish collaborating boy who helped the Germans find the counterfeit from the black marketeers found me, flashing the flashlight in my eyes, like Harlan Judas here, to the German who accompanied him. And he made me come down, and I tried to run away, and cocked his gun, he's going to shoot after me, and I'm pleading, "I'm not Judah." And the Polish boy was a teenage young boy, he was pleading, "Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him," in German. And I pleaded with him. Everybody in the railroad station knows me, say, "Well, pull your pants down, let me see if you're circumcised." And I didn't want to. Finally, I found myself on the platform. The German gendarme agreed to talk and let me go on to see who was in the railroad station, in the depot, whom I claimed I know. As we were ready to go inside the door, the station master, the old station with the lantern, came to greet the oncoming train. The Polish boy again starts saying, "Put the light on him, pull him his pants down." I used the station method, then I didn't want to do it, so he told the German to shoot me. The German cocked his gun ready to shoot me, and I used the station master as a shield. And he kept hitting me with the lantern. Finally, they let me go into the railroad station, into the depot, the little bit of railroad station. And as I'm inside, the Polish boy announces, "Who knows this little Jew?" meaning me. A woman sitting next to the bonfire, next to my boyfriend, baking potatoes. His name was Moishe Marcos, whose brother has survived the war and lived over. He now lives in Florida. And the woman says, "There's another Jew over here." In the meantime, two Polish black marketeer women were trying to get into the door. The two gendarmes guarding the door. I crawled between their feet while they were trying to frisk these women, and they were like resisting them. And I grabbed the proper opportune time, jumped out the door, and the tracks with the platform were only maybe 15, 20 feet from the door. And I fell between the platform and the railroad tracks. It was a rainy day, and I didn't bother crawling any further because I was afraid I'd be detected. And I heard Germans running out. A Jude escaped, a Jude escaped, a Jew escaped, and kept shooting in the direction of the forest. I got into the forest over there, and some people start calling out from the darkness, "Who goes there?" And I says, "A Pole." The instinct of defending myself, a Pole. And I told him a story that my mother was arrested, and with me were smuggling tobacco, which means definite death. The executions, instant execution, we smuggle tobacco or whiskey. And they all went back to their favorite peasants, nearby villages. Some women, it was in the dark, and we walked to these women took charge of me, took me to their favorite peasant, and I had to be walking up when I slept on the floor. And as a man floor on this bedded down straw, this peasant house, everybody's looking down at me, all these women. And one says, "No, he's a gypsy." The other one says, "No, he's a Jew." And after debating who I am, the first opportune time I had, I ran away, and I went back to the railroad station. Stupid me. Kid. So I went back to the railroad station. My boyfriend is still baking potatoes with the same woman. And she's screaming at me, "Because of you, dirty Jew, we couldn't board a train. Germans keep raiding the station day and night, and no train we could board." And I got into an argument with my boyfriend. I went nearby a railroad track, a little farther down. I built my own bonfire, and I started baking potatoes. In the meantime, I took my shirt off, my shoes, and I am disinfecting it. And on top on the railroad track, somebody on a knee, I turned around after I heard the bullets flying all around me. And I look up, I see a man kneeling with a rifle, aiming at me all around me. And I learned that if somebody shoots at you, run zigzag. I left everything behind me, my shoes, my shirt, and I couldn't board no train no more because every night the Germans were raiding that station, evidently looking for Jews in all the neighborhood forests. And then I walked into another railroad station far, far away and came back and would continue my routines. How much more time we got?
We have lots of time.
Lots of time, fine. One time also, I went back and I couldn't remember the railroad station's name. This time I remember that railroad station just immediately before you hit Otvots, the immediate railroad station. The name of the little railroad station was Celestinov. I even wrote it down for myself. Celestinov was a very generous little village, also a little railroad station. Mostly in that village, people were preparing sausages for the black marketeers. And I used to go around begging from these butchers, sausage makers. Now, everybody used to give me a small piece of sausage. To finish it off, while on that railroad station, waiting for the 12 o'clock train to arrive to take another few miles to Otvots, I went to that restaurant, cafeteria-like, there was no sitting room, and the man gave me all kind of pieces of sausage. While I'm eating the pieces of sausage, a drunken German conductor, he was so drunk he could hardly stand straight. It was a little man in a small stature. He grabbed me by the hand without even saying nothing to me and pulled his gun out of his holster and started calling me, "You goddamn Jew." And as we're walking, he's dragging me towards the door to kill me from the outside. Similar miracle women were always helping me out. That's why I love my wife and my daughters. Mm-hmm. And also a couple of women coming into the door, and he got tangled up. He was so drunk, but I was pulling him one way, and he got between the women. I broke away, and I ran all the way around. I wound up in the outdoor toilet on Celestine because the train was due in any second. And I heard him firing in the air and shooting and screaming and shouting like a mad dog. And I boarded the train. I just went about my business. Mm-hmm. That's another close encounter.
How would you board the trains? How would you get?
I just stayed. The train used to stop at the station. I used to get on the train and walk. Because you see, to evade the conductor, the outdoor on the train, those trains were different than the German train, the Polish trains, because they had not one step to go in each door. It was a long running board alongside the car. So if you want to go out, you open up the door while the train is going in full blast, and you hold yourself by the handle, keep changing hands and keep moving, and then you walk on, there's a little ladder, you walk on top on the roof, and you sit on the roof or lay down on the roof or ride on the roof. The conductor shouldn't bother me. Fall asleep many times on the roof. But there were flat roofs. The German trains were round roofs. These were flat roofs. And then for amusement, I used to jump from one car onto the other one. But you don't jump, they're getting a lesson how to jump trains. And I never used to jump forward because the wind would push you back. So you jump backwards because the wind blows backwards. And to jump freight trains, to steal coal, similar, the Germans used to loosen up the handles because there were many boys like myself, just as skilled as I was, jump freight trains. And the freight trains had open, they didn't have no roofs. And they used to carry coal, big chunks of coal. It was very valuable for heating and cooking, still is till today, because they have no indoor plumbing yet in Poland. And they still have the same anti-Semites are still in Poland. I experienced a year ago when I went back to Poland, unfortunately. I went back with a positive attitude, disappointed, came back with a negative. And I have many experiences, but we're not talking after the war now, I'm talking about during the war. And another incident happened when I first started tending cows. A peasant usually would have one cow, had a little bit of narrow spot dividing one piece of property from the other one, maybe 2 feet wide, and you walk on a rope the cow, you graze the cow on narrow roads. But I was smart. I used to steal potatoes from other people's fields, potatoes, carrots, and feed my cow. My cow got so fat, they had lots of milk. As a reward to me, I used to ride the cow like horseback riding. I used to go on the cow. How funny other stories happen. But anyways, in one of those instances where I was standing on a community grazing part in this little village over there, and all the boys used to go swimming in the nude. And actually this was not my luxury, it couldn't be for me. So I tended their cows for them. They got suspicious, why don't I ever go swimming? Why am I such a nice guy always tending their cows? And they kept accusing me, maybe I'm a Jew, maybe I'm not even a boy. They held me down, and while I was screaming and realizing as they seen I'm circumcised, they urinated in my mouth and put fresh cow manure down my throat, and I escaped and went about my business once they let me loose. A bunch of men who they just liquidated a little ghetto in one of those small towns on my railroad lines. And these men, they were not teenagers, they were men in their 20s and their 30s. Drunk as drunk could be, which they probably got through just now helping the Germans liquidate that little ghetto. Because I seen they were loading those Jews from a distance onto the cattle cars. And they see me walking through the field. They said, well, there's one more Jew. And they still chase after me. Well, they caught me. They held me down, and they pulled my pants down. And while they were debating what to do with me, I took a run for it, and they couldn't catch me. I used to exploit many young boys. I'm saying it exploit. I didn't mean to exploit anyone. These were boys who ran away from home, Gentile boys. They used to go home and get clean clothes. I was interested in getting a birth certificate from them. I met one of those boys who was similar age of me. And for me to show him how to survive after he ran away from home, because I spotted him right away and a boy ran away from home. And so I used to make deals with these boys. I took him to the washroom. We traded clothes because my clothes was fully infested with worms. And I felt sorry for them, but I figured if he goes home, his mother's going to clean it. Who's going to clean for me my clothes? And to show him the ropes, how to survive on the railroad stations, to go begging and stuff like this. This particular boy, after trading clothes with him, he told me he has a birth certificate at home in Warsaw. We got off in Warsaw on the main railroad station in Warsaw, which I returned to the same railroad station, same tunnel. As we're walking through the tunnel, which was rebuilt from the original, from pictures, he sees a military policeman who had a shield on his chest. He could stop any German officer, anybody, who wasn't actually interested in Jews. And this little young boy, I noticed, he slows down, looking at me, looking at the German. And when I stopped, he started calling to the German Jude and pointing to my direction. I ran towards the train without looking back. electric train, similar electric trains that had gone from my hometown, Otwock, to Warsaw, given to us by the President Roosevelt, who is still running the same trains every half an hour. It's a local train, the same as you have the subways over here. And the doors didn't close because during the war people held the doors open. There were train load full of people, and I jumped down the deep platform. Although our electric wires were above, not like do the rail, no electric rails. And as I hopped down, I seen a train on the other side waiting to take off. And I hollered to the man over there standing in the doorway to give me a hand to lift me up onto the train. He lifted me onto the train, and the train took off. I look around, there's the German with his gun in his hand, looking after my train. I escaped this part also.
You were all by yourself.
Yes.
What was that like? You were a boy.
Yeah.
All by
yeah.
yourself.
I didn't know no better. It was a game to me. Sneaking in while I was walking, begging. Night used to befall. I used to sneak in people's barns, tearing off about the boards, the walls of the boards and the silos or barns. Used to run boards from the ceiling, from the roof all the way down, grass, straw roofs. Tear a board down, without the people knowing that I'm doing this. Climb into the haystack, dig a tunnel into the haystack, winter, summer. But in the wintertime, I used to crawl into the stall where a horse or cow would sleep. And it was very warm from the breathing of the cow and the manure. Very warm. Beautiful. I used to spend weeks, months, I don't know how long I was in that farm, for food. The chicken laid an egg. Chicken laid nest eggs, they build little nests. The lady at the house used to come collect the eggs. But by the time she got there, I drank those eggs already. But I used to leave the raw, cold eggs so the chicken would come back, because I laundered. And then the lady wouldn't detect that that's me who's stealing the eggs, that somebody's there. So many times in different places I used to do the same thing. People used to, husband and wife were fighting with each other. You must have a skunk there. Skunks steal eggs, by the way, on chickens. Must have a skunk. They blame the dog. They blame the cat. They blame everybody, not knowing me. And many times, one time I dug myself a hole in the ground in the forest, deep hole, accumulated lots of straw, lots of hay, bedded myself down on top. I put branches on top. And I used to go at night. They have apple trees, pears, and those Italian black plums. Pears will ripen no matter how hard they are in hay. And I used to, and I accumulated lots of fruit and green plums, stealing. At night I used to climb, the people were sleeping, climb on a tree, shake the branches, and everything fall and pull my shirt like this, bundle jump, and accumulate enough food stuff. And beets, carrots, mushrooms. My mother taught me how to pick mushrooms without poison mushrooms. And lots of berries in the summertime. Accumulate lots of stuff. And I stayed there, I don't know for how long, till the snow was really deep. I ran out of food. I picked myself up and I went back to do my routine again.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever know that you were lonely?
Yes, I always wondered what's wrong with me. Why the other boys get a chance to go to communion? Why the other boys get to go to church? Why the other boys tending cows get a suit of clothes on the end of the season? Why nobody's chasing them? Why they're chasing me? What did I do wrong? I used to play cards with myself, play war with one hand, play the other. Always the other hand always used to win. And you did all kind of amusement things.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
What would you do to amuse yourself?
To amuse myself, I walk in the fields, tend the cows. I used to sing songs, really loud. I got myself I made my own guitar. I got myself a piece of board. I put a nail on each side and tighten up the nail with the wires, and take a nail and hit it and sing songs loud. Make my own songs up. And
what would the songs be that you would make? What would they be about?
Mostly songs I picked up from the peasants. But one song which put me into business, I composed it myself with somebody else's melody. The song consisted, the black marketeers are being exploited by the peasants. They risk their lives, bring to the peasants all kind of valuables, their wedding, marriage bands, all their valuables from the city for foodstuffs, while the black marketeer peasant, stuffs his mattresses with money instead with straw. He throws out his manure now with wearing white gloves and galoshes. And when I sang this song to these black markets, I had to compose a song better than these professional opera singers, violin players, professional entertainers, professional photographers, make a living. They could have no theaters.
Do you remember this song?
Just generalized. That's about the words that I just gave, but the details, no, I don't remember.
Could you sing it?
No, I wouldn't remember at all. Certain songs come back to me. And as I heard someplace on a Polish radio program, oh, I forgot how to speak Yiddish, by the way. When the war was over, why don't I go till after the war, when I was liberated? Or shall I stick with the war?
Well, okay, why don't we go to how you were liberated?
Because the time.
Right, well, we have a few minutes left, and then we will change the tape, and we still will have another period of time yet. But why don't we go to how you were liberated?
I seen the Warsaw Ghetto burning. I seen Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto being taken to Treblinka, Maidanek, in those cattle cars. I smelled the flesh, burning flesh every night up by trains to pass by from the villages, from the Roma. The stench was terrible.
Did you know what it was?
I was told by other people. It was obvious. Everybody knew. But I didn't know Treblinka, Maidanek. I didn't know of those things. I knew they're going to their death because they're jumping off the train. They didn't care. People were killing him right on the spot. They go, want to kill me too? So I knew it's not good. They're doing away with him someplace. Later on, after the Jewish ghetto uprising, a year later, how do I know a year later? Because I read and I heard people talking. I became very prosperous entrepreneur, selling little candy charms from the proceeds of my song. I followed the boys to the candy factory where they were buying their candies, and then I found a better candy factory outside Warsaw, who the candies were more skinnier, was more per kilogram, which make more per pound, because I paid by the pound. I sold 1 zloty for one little candy charm, which you see me on the picture over here before. And was 100% profit. And I had a pouch this way and a pouch this way to refurbish my candy supply. I think I'm going to go out from Warsaw on the main railroad station, Dworzec Główny in Polish, you pronounce it, Dworzec Zachodni I Dworzec Wschodni, or Praga, which is closer to the ghetto. Well, Dworzec Główny, the main railroad station, was my favorite one. As the candy factory was nearby, when I returned to Poland a year ago, they still have a candy factory in the Holiday Inn hotel, which I didn't go inside, but there was a sign. I took some pictures of my videotapes, where the sign directing to the candy factory. And the Warsaw, there was and then I tried to buy a ticket to get back onto the platform. As I tried to get back onto the platform, didn't want to sell me one ticket to the nearest railroad station. That was my way to get to the nearest. Then I was on my own. And then the uprising started, and I found myself on the outside of Warsaw. The details I would like to tell you in a little while.
Okay, we'll stop for just a moment, and then we'll take up the details.
Fine.
Okay.
I'm continuing with telling you the story of the Gentile Warsaw uprising. The Russians were coming really close towards Warsaw. As the Russians were approaching Warsaw, the Germans disappeared overnight. You didn't see no Germans. As I went on to get off the main railroad station to buy another resupply of candy charms for my regular routine business, I tried to board the train, and to board the train was for me to buy a ticket to the nearest railroad station for the least price. Naturally, once I got onto the platform, I was on my own. The trains were mine. I owned the trains. Go in any direction of Poland, in avoiding the conductors, avoiding German conductors who really mean and never paid no car fare. Even I always used to bribe the conductors with some candy charms when I was in business. The train used to stop. I used to run down the train, alongside the train, how long cukierki kwaśne, miętowe, owocowe. Translation means candy, sour, sweet and sour, mint and chocolate, and all kind of different flavored candy. And people used to reach out to the window, give me a zloty, one equivalent of $1, and that was for one candy. And as I tried to get a ticket, there were men behind the window in Warsaw on the main railroad station, instead as usual, women. I asked for a ticket, the men didn't answer me. I went to another window, men didn't answer me. All of a sudden, shooting started on the depot itself. I ran outside the railroad station, and there's a boulevard outside the railroad station in Warsaw, which happened to be the Holiday Inn. By coincidence, I stayed at the Holiday Inn. My window of my hotel room was looking over the luxurious hotel, which I stayed on.
This is when you went back.
When I went back a year ago, nothing changed, and pointing to everybody in the hotel. We see how I came a long way. I paid a big price for it. Lost everybody in my family. And this is my American wife. I came to show her how I survived.
All right, and let's go back to liberation, to the time of liberation.
And I'm coming to it.
Okay.
And I seen a streetcar loaded full of people because everybody was shooting. People were wearing white and red armbands, which is the flag of Poland. And Germans were shooting back at them. All of a sudden, Germans showed up out of nowhere. I hopped on a streetcar loaded full of people. There was only barely any room on the little step of the streetcar. I found myself on the outskirts of Warsaw on that streetcar. I seen a bunch of Polish people with their hands risen above their head and Germans holding them at gunpoint. Everybody out, rouse, everybody rouse, aussteigen means everybody get out of the streetcar. I didn't want, everybody getting out, I kept pushing myself closer to the driver of the streetcar. I sat myself down next to the driver of the streetcar, and I sat there. The German came in with his machine gun ready to shoot, looked on the streetcar, seen the driver and myself, figuring I belonged to the driver, and told him to keep going. I found myself on the outskirts of Warsaw, in the little town where I met lots of boys who tended cows with me in that particular town, whose name escapes me. And I went to their house, and I stayed with them. I paid them, which I still had some money. And the big cannon called Berta on railroad tracks, and on tracks the cannon was loaded by tracks, and every time they fired, and I was standing from about 50, 100 feet away from the cannon, they were shooting on Warsaw, where 200,000 Polish people died. The Warsaw Uprising only lasted 2 weeks. A year later, after the Jewish uprising, now I learned if the Jewish resistance movement in the Warsaw Ghetto were begging the resistance of the Polish resistance to combine together, how much they would have had achieved. 200 Poles would never died, and all these Jews would never died neither. And while in that little town, the Germans were recruiting people to go to Warsaw, dig anti-tank tunnels. And I went there too with the Polish people, and as a result, when nobody lived in Warsaw, they let you go into Warsaw to take things, whatever you've seen. And I went with them. And then one night, the Russians, under the Russian army, the Polish army came in with tanks, and everybody was greeting the tanks and kissing. All the population were so happy the Polish army liberated them, or formed in Russia, that army. And I didn't see no Germans. I was happy the same way. Not knowing why I was happy because there were no more Germans, I suppose. The people whose house I was living, one of my boyfriends, who I still call with, from the train, selling candy, tending cows, there were many boys living in the same building. And while I was sleeping, they pulled my sheet down to see if I'm Jewish, because they were suspected of me. I'm too happy. Naturally, I'm Jewish. They start screaming at me, rightfully so, because if I would have been discovered in their house, they would have killed them too, as well me too. But I didn't think it this way. I wanted to live. I'm all by myself. I haven't got where to go. I had an accordion which I found in Warsaw. They forced me to sell it to them. Whatever money they wanted to give me, they gave me. I had a bicycle, and on the bicycle on foot, I was going towards my hometown on foot. There were no trains. Many, many, many miles. I came, crossed over the river, which was frozen. That's when the Russians crossed the river. They waited like 6 months from June to January, something like this, which I read someplace. And I came to my hometown. I found my boyfriend, Menachem Burstein. How do I find him? Everybody who was returning from after survive went to form the committee. Each village, each town, if anyone survived, called it a committee of one maybe. Maybe this is the only person that survived out of the whole community, and nobody survived out of many communities. And this boyfriend of mine, Menachem Burstein, wrote on his house, on his shadow of his window where he lived, Menachem Burstein is in town as a tailor. Come and see me. I found him working at a sewing machine. He's the same age as I am. And he told me he survived in the forest, hiding all over the place. From there, I went to some Gentile people who offered to adopt me in Garvolin, but they suspected me of being Jewish. The man who fought with the resistance, the son of these people, I said, here I am. You don't have to be afraid for the Germans no more. There are no more Germans. They directed me to a Jewish orphanage in Lublin where Majdanek was, and also near Treblinka. There's an orphanage there. When I arrived in that orphanage, I forgot how to speak Yiddish. I didn't know how to spell my name. I was all alone. I didn't remember how my parents looked like, how my brothers looked like. Excuse me. And this orphanage, I met some Jewish boys who didn't speak Polish good. And I spoke only Polish. They asked me the word Amchu. I didn't know what Amchu meant till of recently. It means one of my people. And want to see if I'm circumcised. I got into a fist fight with them, and I walked off. A little boy, Chaim Burstein, who was in the orphanage also from Warsaw, a little guy, he followed me outside. He says he believes me I'm Jewish. We were hitchhiking towards the United States, both of us. He knew geography, I had money. And we found ourselves on a platform heading towards Warsaw, he told me. We have to go first to Warsaw. There are no passenger trains, only military trains. I bribed two military policemen to let us onto the platform. We met up with two high-ranking Russian generals who happened to be Jewish, who recognized my boyfriend. And they were escorting us. And the story goes on a bit many. I'm going to abbreviate it. This is a picture of me in one of the kibbutzim in 1946-45. I have many pictures of myself over here.
Now, this is a kibbutz that was in Germany.
Germany.
Can you tell us just briefly about the organization that
there was an organization, very little mentioned, unfortunately. There were heroic Jews who helped save other Jews, and remnant Jews who survived like myself. Because I would have remained Gentile like lots of other Jewish children of today, live as Gentiles, not knowing even they're Jewish. And one man I know in particular, he didn't want even, a friend of mine came to visit him where he was married this Gentile woman. He didn't want him to even to be revealed that he's Jewish. And I was going to do the same thing. If not, the kind Gentile family kicked me out. I went, this bricha, picked Jewish children like myself off the street. Wherever they could find remnants of Jewish people, organized strategically, took away from Nazis some houses, or wherever they could rent, and got us across the border by bribing the border guards. There's still a war going on, 1945. I found myself in many other orphanages, which detail I don't know time was permit. This bricha finally settled us in an orphanage near the German-Czechoslovakian border in Schlesien, in Katowice.
Now, in this picture, how old were you?
I guess I must have been 15 years old, 16 years old, 17, roughly. I don't know I still don't know how old I am. And I sent for a birth certificate now, and the birth certificate came because my stepfather adopted me. And when my younger brother, Abraham, was born, my mother registered him in 1935. My father adopted me. He gave me his last name also. So it was 1935. My mother must have been guessing that I was born in 1928. And I go according to this. And I had to change all my papers because I had so many names, so many aliases, so many misspelling of my names.
You weren't sure who you were?
I didn't know who I was. Finally, the bricha smuggled us out from Germany, from Poland to this, on the fictitious papers as Greek Jews to Czechoslovakia. In Czechoslovakia, they put us in a displaced person camp, so-called, in Prague, and gave us fictitious papers with pictures of ourselves, with passports, fictitious papers. The Czechs evidently didn't know how to read German, and as returning German Jews coming back to Germany. And then we had to walk, because we wouldn't want to cross the Austrian border from Czechoslovakia, because the Austrian knew how to read German. So we walked middle of the night, holding on by a rope. The Brigade, the organization, the underground Jewish organization, smuggled us on our way to Vienna, to Austria, into Austria. And trucks were waiting for us, army trucks were waiting. We got on those trucks in the middle of the night. They took us into Austria and the transit house. From the house, there came more trucks and took us, children, most of us, and took us to a kibbutz, an orphanage kibbutz. We were 400 of us, mostly boys, very few girls. While in that kibbutz, we waited for our turn, kids to go legally to Palestine or illegally. For me, they could make their mind up. While I waited, and I seen several boys had cousins. I had no one. Like I said, I want to know who I am. So I was jealous of them. But I remember my mother telling me at the beginning of the war, said, when the war ends, she didn't say if I survive. When the war ends, I want you to look up your father's family, meaning my stepfather's family in Chicago. And look up my mother's sister in Palestine, which she left at the outbreak of the war as a teenager to Palestine, where she married. I went to Munich, snuck out of the kibbutz, because if I would reveal I'm going to look for family in the United States, I would be expelled in disgrace. That I was flirting to go to the United States. It was not the thing for me to do, rightfully so. You lost all your family. The only place for a Jew under my circumstances, go to Palestine, your homeland. You never experience such things as we experience, as I experienced in the few remnants of us. I found family. I wrote to everybody named Cheshinsky, S-K-I, C-I-E-S-K-I, Cheshinsky. Nobody answered except one gentleman whose picture I have in my album over here. He promptly started sending me packages and letters in Polish. We corresponded with each other. On the picture below, he wrote Uncle Joe and Mary, cousin Arlene, cousin something. I found family. I found myself. I ran away from the kibbutz. I found myself in this displaced person camp where I found a family from my hometown, a young family with 2 little kids who didn't know me before the war. They survived in Russia. And we had a reunion from our hometown in that displaced person camp to discover that less than 100 of us have survived. Almost all of them in the Soviet Union survived. 2 children, Menachem Burstein and myself, the only surviving children. And the lady says to me from my hometown, why don't you write a letter in Yiddish to your uncle? He'll do you better. Get more packages. I did ask her to write a letter for me. Nothing was coming, no letters. Everything came to a standstill. All of a sudden, I have everything, then I got nothing. I kept reading the letters over and over again. What did I do wrong? Why don't they want me to answer me my letters? And those letters I indicated in every possible language I knew how to write. Finally, Mr. Netboy wrote me a letter. In the letter he writes, I'm very sorry for you. Mr. Cheshinsky works for me. I have a shoe manufacturing company. And I'm sorry your uncle is not your uncle. There was a mistake. As a matter of fact, he's not even Jewish. But I'll help you find your family. Unfortunately, I came to the United States in search of family. There's a picture of me when I arrived in the United States. I adopted the name of Jerry Shain because my stepfather had a brother, sister, and a mother. And not supposed my father being divorced was a disgrace. He didn't mention me of my mother being also divorced with a baby. So that I was supposed to be his child. So I didn't want to embarrass my parents who are deceased. And I played my part that these are my cousins. I built in my mind they're my cousins. They rejected me before I came. The cousin club tried to force them on me. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way. 6 years ago, I went with my wife, Helen, who's my whole life. Oh, by the way, I have My wife and I have 2 beautiful daughters, married to a Weinstein and a Kaplan, to carry on the tradition for the ones I lost. Eileen, my daughter, who's married to Danny Kaplan, has a son, which is my grandson, Mark, and Elena. Marsha, my older daughter, our older daughter, has a son, my grandson, my older grandson, Michael, who's 6 years old, going on 30. And she has a daughter, Tara, who started writing my story, which she won a prize from his school. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, she says, I want to see the tape if you're being interviewed, because I want it. Mm-hmm. So I promised her when she's old enough, I give her the tape. She could keep, so she could write. So other generations will continue for the ones who never made it, to be here to tell this story.
So now you have a family.
Thank God I have a family. I went to Israel, like I said again. While in Israel, I remember my mother's only sister, youngest sister, who promised to take me with her to Palestine, which she didn't. I never said goodbye to her when she left for Palestine, because I was angry at her. She was corresponding with my mother. I knew her name was Kisman. She lived in Haifa, her married name. While in Jerusalem, I called everybody under the name of Kisman in Jerusalem. The phone system is terrible to get through. People hang up on me. People thought I was crazy, asking them in Yiddish and English, or whatever language they spoke, which I knew, I didn't know Hebrew. Finally, one lady who was hard, kept repeating, kept teasing me, I know you entered. The way she was talking, she knew my end, she kept hanging up on me. Finally, I skipped on her and went to another young man who spoke English, Kisman. I told him the dilemma I was in. He says, my mother is also Kisman, in Haifa also, from Jerusalem I was calling. If she doesn't find your end and your family, nobody will. And he gave me her number, which I called her back. And after he talked to her first, she started teasing me again. I'll call you back. I'll call you back. I said, I only got 2 days. I'm staying in a hotel every half an hour. I didn't want to go on a trip with a group. I kept begging her, please, pleading with her in Yiddish. She finally connected me with my uncle, my mother's sister's husband. Nothing in the world meant so much, except my family, my immediate family, my children, my wife, my grandchildren, as finding family that's mine, my flesh and my blood, my 3 cousins, my aunts, 2 daughters and a son, Sarah, Tamar, and Chaim, who, such a love affair, as if I knew him all my life, and they knew me. My uncle and I, like my father, my aunt died a year and a half earlier. And I'm so lucky. My cousin, Sarah, who lives in the Negev, in Beersheba, outside Beersheba, she has a beautiful home. Her husband was the chief engineer, I'm very proud to say it, to build in the Sinai the tunnel for the airplanes to hide out. She showed me the citations he got from Menachem Begin, then Prime Minister, and Jimmy Carter award from him to being so ingenious to engineer the tunnel to the Israeli planes to hide. When Sinai was given back to Egypt, he was instrumental to do the same in the Negev. And he died 2 years before I found my family. My aunt died a year and a half early. As we're leaving Israel, my cousin says, do you know your family in the United States? I said, no. I have my stepfathers, and they don't want me. They don't want no part of me. So they said, yes, from your mother's side, you got it. I called them up in California, my second cousins, the dentist, Silberman, Harry and Betty Silberman in California. They talked to me like they knew me all my life. Mm-hmm. 5 minutes later, the phone rings. Another cousin, a dentist, also in St. Louis. Sam Gilbert, I want you to come over to my farm. He has a 100-acre forest outside St. Louis, a mansion he has. He's a vast wheeler dealer and building a retired dentist. They had a family reunion, which I was invited, being given the honor. Every time there's a bar mitzvah, the bar mitzvah in a family, they make a vacation years ahead of time of the grandchildren. My wife and Helen and I included. We just returned from a bar mitzvah in Portland, Oregon. And we stay in the same hotel, we're in the same family. Then, not distant cousins. These are my second cousins, but also their grandchildren. We are brothers and sisters.
With a family.
They are 4 sisters and 2 brothers. My mother's mother and their mother's father were brother and sister.
With a family, you have roots. You belong to something.
Belong with.
You
now,
belong to, right.
in June, we're going to visit again the family in California.
Now, we just have a few minutes left. In the time that we have remaining, is there anything that you haven't said that you would like to say?
Yes. I wish not only the state of Illinois that my story should be compulsory using the school system, that people should be educated. Even in Poland, which I returned, there's no Jews, but anti-Semitism is growing so big. The Jewish children who came to Auschwitz or to go to the March of the Living were stoned every time they go back to go to visit what their relatives have perished. With no Jewish and anti-Semitism, I experienced only being in Poland for 1 week a year ago, which time wouldn't permit. So hopefully people will be educated through education, to awareness that I am a human being like everybody else. We mean well, we contribute as Jewish people so much. I'm learning, and I'm so proud that I returned to the being Jewish, because I could remain Gentile like many of my other people, like myself, did. And I'm very proud to be Jewish, but I wouldn't impose my religion on no one else. But I want to be left alone, and my children, my grandchildren should be left alone, live the way they want it as the choice of their religion.
Okay, thank you very much.
I thank you for the opportunity, and I hope it will reach more people then.
Thank you.